Okay, ready? Good evening. We're going to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting for September 28, 2015. We have a roll call, please. Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Here. First item is a motion to approve the minutes of the August 31st, 2015 Public Works Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
To our regularly scheduled agenda, PW1. This is the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, Transportation and Community Development Initiative, Grant Program, and Simone Collins Landscape Architects. And this is for discussion only. We're going to call on Commissioner Stephen Klein.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowman. Excited about having this come before the board, as we have gotten probably about three-quarters of the way through the process with Simone Collins. This is through a grant from DVRPC to create a master bicycle plan, which will be used as a blueprint or a guideline as we start to pave or look at street improvements. We'll be able to refer to this master bike plan and create a network of safe pathways through the township that will connect commercial districts, schools, transportation hubs, and other recreational trails throughout the township and also adjacent townships and even into the city. So with that, I'm going to pass it over. It's helpful to say Commissioner Sanchez sits on the steering committee along with Traffic Safety Officer Al Freed. I'm going to probably forget somebody here. Manager Lefevre, Scott Marlin from the Township Engineering has been doing a great job coordinating and facilitating all the communications. Dr. Fetcher from the school district has been involved. I'm missing somebody? I feel like I'm missing somebody. Anyhow, it's been a great collaborative effort, and I'll pass it on to Peter Simone. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Klein. Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. And to Commissioner Klein's point, here's the committee that's been participating. And I have to say, most of the committee members have been to all the committee meetings, so it's been a very engaged group. The Township Manager has for you tonight draft copies of this plan, which hopefully you can leave with. And we've been working with traffic planning and design to put this together over the last several months. And as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, this is funded by the DVRPC, Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. And I'm going to give you a very abbreviated overview tonight. We've had a number of meetings. You can see them listed here. We've met also with PennDOT and SEPTA and the school district, City of Philadelphia, and the Borough of Jenkintown, because they're all sort of partners as you move forward. And again, I will single two out. PennDOT has been very helpful with giving us advice, as they always do in these township master plans. And SEPTA also has a new program underway where they are encouraging bicycle transportation at their transit stations. And they have a new study they've completed. They're very excited about what you're doing here in Abington and encourage you to keep in touch with them as you start to implement it, because it's going to help them with their mission. And this is a master plan, meaning it's a blueprint of how you move forward and how you will implement each phase. Is after you hopefully accept this master plan, you'll go out and look for funding, and it's a very good funding environment. You'll do design and engineering, and you'll do construction documents as needed, and then you'll build a phase. And this will be repeated several times. We've repeated with our committee in the three public meetings we've had that this is probably a 10 to 15 year plus project. It'll take time to implement, depending on how successful you are with grant applications as you move forward. So it's not going to happen overnight. As I mentioned, we've had good public meetings. We've had 3 public meetings so far. You can see the dates. We've had good attendance. People have been positive. There have been hardly any, if any, naysayers. People are very engaged and excited about what's happening with this plan. So it's been very good feedback from members who have come. Just a little bit of trail education real quickly. There are three main user groups that are typically classified. First are the adult cyclists. These are the folks that will travel in traffic and are pretty experienced and very confident. Those people will certainly appreciate this plan, but they're going to ride if there's a plan or not. We're really trying to get the next group, the casual or less confident cyclists, people who would like to ride in the township, but maybe don't feel as comfortable or confident. So we're trying to engage them as you move forward, to get them more involved and to get them feeling like they can ride. And then there are child cyclists who certainly, either your kids or your grandkids who you wouldn't put out on a road trail. This has recreational components, but it's mainly a commuter system we're looking at. It's a transportation system is the way the DVRPC is approaching this. So certainly has fitness benefits and recreational benefits. Just like cyclists have classifications, so do trails, and there are three basic ones. One is a Class 1, a completely separate trail that's off of a road, something like you might have in Alvethorpe Park or some of your other parks. It's a separated trail. We certainly have some of those we're planning. The next is a Class 2, where you actually have a designated bike lane that's a certain width. These are greater than the shoulders you put in on Valley Road, for example. These are wider and have sometimes some protection for the cyclist. And then Class 3 is more a share the road, or it's really called today use full lane. That's the new signage. PennDOT's not going to be putting out share the road anymore. It's going to be use full lane, which means the cyclist is entitled to use the full lane, and those signs will alert motorists to that fact. So these are the three types of trails. Also, one of the new things that's happening in cycling is we have what's called a level of comfort mapping. And your plan includes level of comfort. Level 1 being the most comfortable, where people of all age and abilities will ride. These will certainly be off-road trails, but they also might be a very low traffic residential street, which you have in your community and we're going to utilize. So those are level of comfort 1. Then level of comfort 2, it just goes in descending scale of comfort. Level 2, comfortable for most adults. And then 3 and 4 are going to be the more experienced cyclists. So we've also done mapping that you'll see in the plan that shows where the most comfortable routes are in the township. Another thing I'll mention quickly is the region is engaged in this in a bicycle plan or bicycle route superhighway called the Circuit. And this is getting tremendous support from not only DVRPC, but the William Penn Foundation, and DCNR and other funding agencies. You can see Abington, where it's situated, and the superhighway trails that touch Abington are certainly the Pennypack, which we want to make connections to, and then close by the Cross County Trail, and in the future the Gresham Valley and the Tucanee Creek Trail also. So you're in a good spot to connect to these regional trails as you grow your system. As Commissioner Klein mentioned, we want to connect to all these different destinations and features. You've got a great park system. We want to make it easy for people to go to the park system without getting in their cars if they so choose. And you can see the other destinations that we've looked at, including schools and commercial areas, et cetera. And also your mass transit stations become very, very important destinations for your residents. We have when you look at the plan, you'll see this is a draft plan, meaning it's still subject to change, it's still fluid. We hope to have the plan completed and in front of the full Board of Commissioners in February for hopefully your approval. But we'll be making, we know, some changes between now and then. And when you look at the plan, you'll see in detail that it's sort of like a Chinese menu. We have sections of trail broken up into bite-sized bits. So trail 13E goes from this point to that point. And when you look in the cost estimates, there's a distinct cost for that. And then if you go to 13D, it's from here to there. So that as you implement this over a period of years, you're not going to be guessing, oh, where's this number come from? What is our estimate for this cost? It's all broken down so that as you go forward, you can recover those costs very, very easily. Also, there are a lot of what we're doing is on-road bicycle routes, and you'll see a breakdown in a minute. And those get broken down into these four different types. First of all, we have bike lanes, and I'm going to show you examples, sharrows, signage only, and off-road multi-use trail. And they're all color-coded on the map that's also in the report. So you can see what kind of trail exists where. And then as an example, this could be a bike lane. This is a good example of a bike lane, which is 5 feet wide and will be marked as such. Then there'll be what are called sharrows, and these are pavement markings that don't have a particular shoulder, but they're there. They're usually used on low-volume roads, residential roads, to alert motorists that there may be cyclists in the route. This is a designated route, so everybody hopefully will be a little more careful as a motorist. We all will be more careful. Off-road trail you're certainly all familiar with, and then some of the routes will be signage only. So these are the four types of improvement types generally that are in the master plan. And then I mentioned earlier the level of comfort mapping. This is another layer. These and this map shows the greens and the yellows are the most comfortable routes that most people will find they'll be comfortable biking on. And then as you get the orange and red, those are ones that traffic volumes go up, the speeds of vehicles will go up. And this will be a work in progress for the township, because as you evolve this system and grow it, this is your starting point. So hopefully there might be a red section between two green sections, and then as you go forward, there'll be some impetus to change that red section to a green section by doing certain improvements. But this is our starting point in terms of implementing this trail. In terms of the types of trails that are shown in this plan, you can see the numbers here. We've got about 5 miles of off-road routes, bike lanes 2 miles, sharrows 27 miles, signed routes 14. So we've got about 47 miles of trails in this overall system, which, again, will connect a lot of the townships. Certainly there are going to be tweaks as you go forward. And one of the things we talked about in our last public meeting is you may see sidewalk improvements you want to do here. This is not a walking plan, but those things will come up as you do this plan. And then also in the report, there are these detailed GIS maps. There are 18 of them that are a larger scale. So as opposed to that large map you saw, you'll be able to drill down and see individual lot lines, et cetera, as these trails go through the township. So it's really quite a bit of detail here. And then this is an example, you can't read this, of course, of the cost estimate sheets. So each section, like this blue section is whatever the number is, 3, A and B. This is a larger section, might be 4, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, sections broken down. And so you'll be able to see where those numbers come from. In terms of the overall estimates, you can read those, and I won't read them to you, but we're at a total estimated cost in today's dollars of about $6.1 million to implement this entire bike system. Again, it's not a project you'll do overnight, but you could do it in certainly 10 to 15 years, depending on funding. In terms of priorities, we also have in the plan a suggestion on priority routes, and the purple or the mauve here being the high priority routes, and then midterm and long term. Working with the committee, we've taken our best shot at this, certainly from both the Board of Commissioners and the public. This plan will be up on your website in a few days, so we would like to get comments from the public on all these parts of the plan, and we may change this. Just to quickly go through some of what we've suggested as the high priority routes, this number 3 that goes east to west, linking Penbryn, Ardsley Station, Roslyn Park, and Crestmont Parks, and that has a total price tag of about $1 million, this route. 4 and 12, connecting Valley Road to Crestmont Park, and also connection to the future cross-county trail. That's about a $300,000. And you can see the variation in price. The reason this number 3 is higher is there's a section of off-road trail that's proposed to be built that goes past the cemetery, which is about a $600,000 number just for that section of trail. 14, connecting Noble Station to Friends School and Alvethorpe Park. 16, Meadowbrook Station to the east end of the Pennypack Trail. This is an important connection, getting people. We've had a lot of public input about we want to be able to get to the Pennypack, so we have a connection here. 16, and also on the eastern side and also on the western side, another connection. So, again, this is our suggestion for Priority 1 routes. In terms of funding sources, certainly the trick here is to use as little township money as possible. And it is possible. We mentioned last year, our firm, along with TP, did a master plan for Pottstown Trails. They were able to get a $1 million TAP grant matched by a $600,000 Pottstown Wellness Foundation grant. No local money, and now we're documenting Phase 1. So it is possible to do this with no local money. It's a little unusual, but that's the goal. Pennsylvania Department of Conservation Natural Resources, DCNR, they have a grant round coming up April 13th. That's a 50-50 match. And then also, and I just got an email today about this, DVRPC with PennDOT, the Transportation Alternatives Program, has a grant round coming up. It opens November 2nd, closes January 8th. If you felt you wanted a project in that program, you could be aggressive. You could put a grant together, and I think a lot of these routes would be good candidates. I believe this is an 80-20 program. So there's money out there, and these other sources, I won't read them all, but they are all available for different aspects, and part of the art of grant writing is certainly targeting certain pieces of the system to these specific programs. So the next steps, we are now in our 60-day plan review. We hope that all of you have the time to take a look at this. We'd love to get your comments, things you like, things you don't like. That will be very helpful. We have another committee meeting in November 16th. We have our 4th public meeting. At that committee meeting, I should mention, we'll be agreeing on revisions based on all the input we get. We're going to have another public meeting in January 11th. We will be hopefully presenting the final plan, and then we'll come back to the full Board of Commissioners in February, hopefully for your approval or acceptance of the plan. So that's a really quick overview. There's a lot of detail in there, and we are, as you know, we're on your website. There's a Facebook page for this. So I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you have as you dive into reviewing this draft.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Simony. With respect to the money and the plan, you're saying that if we approve it, it's not like we're approving ourselves to financing. Okay.
No, this has no legislative teeth. It doesn't commit you to do anything. It is a planning tool that hopefully you'll move forward with. And as I mentioned, the goal would be to get a lot of grant money. And again, it's a great environment right now for getting grant money. DCNR gives away $30 million a year, every year, from the real estate transfer tax funds. That's there every year. Commonwealth Finance Agency gives away money every year to build trails, et cetera. So, correct. You're not committing, but I think the environment's good.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Commissioner Sanchez and Commissioner Klein and Manager Lefevre for all their work in this matter. Questions from committee members? Commissioner Kalinowski.
Yeah, so how was Susquehanna Road's done now, Valley Road's done? How was that paid for? Through the township or through grants? Or
I believe it was paid for township painting funds, public works funds.
Well,
Commissioner?
PennDOT paid for Susquehanna.
Oh, Susquehanna.
When they repaved Susquehanna, PennDOT incorporated those. And last year, we allocated money out of fund balance to do Valley Road when the township went and repaved Valley Road from the Aqua work.
I think it's a great idea. I think moving forward, we should definitely invest the time into this. I like the way Susquehanna Road looks now. At the beginning, I had lots of concerns. The traffic seemed backed up. But it seems now to calm the traffic there with the bike lanes. It doesn't seem to cause this two lanes that Susquehanna used to follow, and it's nice.
Yeah, Commissioner, one of the comments has come up many times at the public meetings and at committee meetings is hopefully as the township engages in this, maybe there's a yearly public education program, because part of this is public education, both with cyclists but more with motorists,
Right.
to let them know how they should act around bikes. A lot of people don't know, there's a new law passed last year that a motorist has to give a cyclist 4 feet of clear space when you're going past the cyclist. So those types of things are helpful. So hopefully there could be a public education component.
I would definitely agree with the public education. I was looking into the book while we were talking, and those shared lanes would really concern me with some of the kids that are out there driving now, thinking that they can be a part of the shared lanes with these automobiles, and that wouldn't work. Definitely. Not in the back roads of my neighborhood or anywhere else. I mean, but the public education would be great. Is a great idea, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Other commissioners present? Members of the public?
Good evening, Commissioners. Madeline Dean, 795 Glen Road, Jenkintown. And I guess I stand here both as a resident but also as state representative, just to say I commend you for being community-building thinking and engaging in this analysis of how can we make it, I'm staring at best places to live. This is the exact kind of stuff that Abington smartly does to try to figure out how do we connect all our people, whether you're walking or you're on a bicycle or you're in a car or you're trying to use mass transit, to interesting places in our community. So to me, it's just utterly delightful that you're investing your resources to try to analyze what's going to make us a more livable community. In the end, it makes us a more livable community. It also makes us a more valuable community in terms of appraised values of properties and all of those kinds of things. But more than that, it makes it better for families. So I'm just utterly delighted. And I think you know that from my position as a member of the House, I am here and participating and willing to do anything to get the kind of money and funding to implement this plan over time and to get you the grants. It couldn't come at a better time in terms of resources because, as you know, we passed Act 89, which is transportation funding, which has the multimodal funds that you guys can access, that we need to access to implement some of this, and there's lots of other grant opportunities. So please call upon me to be whatever help I can. And I say this not because my husband's in the bike business. Okay? Full disclosure. I do like to ride a bike, but this is, for somebody like me, a casual rider, it is scary to be on roads, but you can see immediately the difference that the Susquehanna lines make and how those Susquehanna lines actually make walking safer for that neighborhood, because now the cars are not right up on top of the sidewalks. So I commend you. Call upon me, my office, whatever I can do to help. You're really moving in the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Dean. Any other comments from the public?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So in the presentation, you had your users with the adult cyclists and experts first, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and the roads are all the other way. It's a silly thing, but I wonder if you flipped those users into children first, you would be in tune with number 1 is always the easiest, number 2 is the next, and on down. So the only comment that I had is this is a wonderful thing. This does make our communities better and makes it a more livable community. And I would like you to consider the rezoning issue where we are pulling things in and not leaving rooms for bike trails along major corridors like York Road. I would like you not to approve them because this stuff is important. And the traffic up that corridor, we were just way up country. And all the way along, there were interruptions. By the time you get from upcountry down York Road and through here and try to get to the city, it's almost impossible. So every single community along York Road should be broadening, making room for bikes, making room for turn-off lanes, and I encourage you, please, to reconsider that zoning rewrite plan. Thank you.
I guess obviously the only response to that is that here in Jenkintown and Abington, the road is, we've inherited the road at its present width, and those commercial properties are incredibly valuable. So the idea of trying to buy chunks of them to create bike lanes here on 611, or as you go down into Jenkintown, is prohibitively expensive. So, any other comments from anyone? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
One more. We got to.
Sorry about that.
Nice try, Commissioner Bowman.
committee is one item only.
Larry threw me off by throwing stuff.
Thanks,
All right.
Peter.
I'm sorry about that. Returning to this item, all those in favor?
There's no action.
Just discussion. Sorry about that.
Peter, that was really great.
Okay. PW2. This is a settlement agreement for Delaware River Basin Commission, total dissolved solids penalty. This is a motion to authorize the acceptance of DRBC's settlement by agreement, including authorizing the payment of $875, and I so move.
Second.
Any comment from committee members? Other commissioners present? Staff or the public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And PW3, this is for discussion only. This is the Edge Hill Road, Tyson Avenue Flood Control Street Reconstruction Project, Ardsley Wildlife Sanctuary use for drainage. I'm going to call on Commissioner Zappone to talk about this matter.
Thank you, Commissioner. A meeting was held on Friday to discuss the progress of the project. Our team that is currently working on this project is absolutely outstanding. Majority of the properties and the scope of the project have been appraised. With that, I'm going to turn this over to our township engineer, Mike Powers.
Yes, we worked on the project on Friday. There is a glitch in the project. We, back in the reimbursement stage where we negotiated the right-of-way from PennDOT and the right-of-way monies for the agreement, the talk about paying an extra $500,000 to use the cemetery property was prohibited. It was hard to find the money, so we relocated the pipe about 100 feet up along the railroad road, and we would like to take that water and take it down to the Ardsley Wildlife Sanctuary. Prior to any knowledge of the sanctuary and its use as for the trees and for the sanctuary, the property was bought by the township back in the 80s for stormwater management, and we've always used it for stormwater management. There are 4 basins on the property. Now, the 4th basin that we're going to be utilizing, the flows from this pipe, was designed years ago to hold the water, and now the question is whether we should use it, use the property and save the $500,000 plus the additional costs of engineering to move this pipe back over to the cemetery side, and of course some loss in time because all this has to be negotiated with PennDOT. PennDOT's here, representative from PennDOT, Amy Kim's here. I have been talking with her. They're looking at the possibility of covering the costs of the right-of-way. They're 80%. Then it all has to be approved. It takes time to go through the process, and we really think that in order to keep the project moving, we would like to keep the water on the township property, use the township property for stormwater management, and convey the water. Now, we do have some opposition from the Shade Tree Commission. They're here to make their representation. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Debbie Ferrara. She's going to give you a short presentation as to where we are right now with the design and what we've come up with as far as our design of the plan.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you just introduce yourself for the record?
I was just going to switch my slideshow, I'm sorry. Debbie Ferraro, I'm with Project Manager for the Edge Hill Tyson Road project, and I'm with Pannoni Associates. And I have with me Matt Stolsitz. He's also with Pannoni, and he's one of our stormwater management experts, and he's working on the drainage design and stormwater management for the project.
Thank you.
We're going to switch this over. Sorry about that. I just said the wrong thing. Just make sure this works. Okay. Is this in our book? Is that working? Pointer. I'm ready. We bought just, this diagram is a little bit difficult to see, but we wanted to show you, just again, we're reconstructing Tyson Road and Edge Hill Road and putting in a drainage system. Right now, the drainage flows overland through this area, and it's conveyed through the tracks through 3 existing pipes. One of the outcomes of preliminary design is to replace those pipes and extend our project north of the tracks in an effort to improve some of the flooding on the private property adjacent to the railroad tracks and to control the water. So again, we're looking for a decision on how we can convey the drainage from underneath the tracks through this area and to its ultimate point at Sandy Run Creek. And I don't know, Matt, if you want to go through some of the details.
So basically, what we're here talking about, and what we've been in discussions about, is this crossing over here that we've identified as culvert crossing number 3, and it's an existing culvert that crosses on the SEPTA tracks. As Debbie mentioned, there are several crossings that cross on the SEPTA tracks. Basically, they're old stone and rock openings. Some are pipes, some are rock and stone. And what happens is there's a limited amount of existing drainage within the roadway system now, and there's sometimes just open discharge pipes, and they simply just direct the flow down towards the tracks. Because if you guys are familiar with this area, everything flows northward to the tracks, and the tracks sit up, so there's a berm. So all this water then ponds at those areas, and then ultimately crosses through those openings, and then gets northward through the sanctuary, through the cemetery, and ultimately, as you guys can see on this plan, there is a wetland area here and then a stream, and that meanders down to where the dam is and then ultimately to the Sandy Run. So what we were looking at was this crossing specifically. As you can see here, we have an existing, it's a little tough to see, but there's an existing opening here, and then we have this water course that comes across. There's a pipe that runs underneath the paved road, and then this continues as a water course all the way down. And then there is a large grass berm here along the upper hillside road. And then there are 2 concrete pipes. I'm sorry. There are 2 concrete pipes that cross under the road and then convey the flow further northward. So what we've done as part of our permit design process is to run a new pipe through here and then come across and discharge it in this area. It's tough to see, but there's a fence line right here, and that is the property line between the sanctuary, the township-owned property, and the cemetery. So this existing water course crosses on cemetery property and then meanders back and forth under the fence and then makes its way back onto township property before it enters this crossing. So what we've done is we've developed a swale design to convey the flow from the discharge point just at the north side of the tracks down to this location, so that we could direct the flow through this opening, through this pipe, and then it would enter the wetland and the stream and be conveyed on to the Sandy Run. This swale is designed currently to convey the 100-year flow. That's what we designed the entire drainage system to do. It was the request of the township, so all the pipes on all the roadways carry the 100-year flow. And this swale is designed in that manner. We had a meeting a few weeks ago, maybe more, out on the site to talk about the impacts of what this would do. We've looked at a couple different alternatives, and we went back and looked at trying to shrink this footprint to minimize the loss of trees and the impact of the sanctuary. And this is what we've come up with. So the previous design was a 12-foot wide bottom trapezoidal swale, 2 foot deep, and it had 3-to-1 side slopes, and then there were berms on top, and then that tapered back down to existing grade. So that whole area would convey the 100-year flow. What we did is we came up with a narrower, deeper ditch design that runs through here that's in a complete cut situation that's more like 10 feet width to width. And then we would have some additional area for tying in with grading and getting structural equipment, that sort scenario. So we were looking at shrinking that disturbed area for the purpose of the swale from something like 25 feet down to 10 or 12 feet. And then you have some additional grading on top of that to get the construction equipment in and to do the tiebacks.
What's the depth?
This design right now is 2.5 feet deep.
The new design?
Yeah.
And the old design was what?
It was 2 feet.
Thank you.
So this is what we come up with. We have next. Yeah, we have some photos. So this is a picture of, you can see the septic tracks up here, and it's tough to see, but there's the existing pipe that comes across the crossing, and then this is the existing water course, and right here is the existing pipe that crosses under the paved road, and then this heads northward and goes into the water course. So this is all mapped as a water course right now. And then this is basically turning 180 degrees and looking, you have the road here, and then this is the discharge of that pipe, and you can see this existing channel that comes through here, how it's heavily eroded and incised, and then here's the fence line that divides the cemetery property from the township property. And then this is further downstream. I believe this is looking back northward or southward of the tracks, rather, and this shows again the insides of the channel and how it's eroded and how it meanders underneath the fence. And then this is we have 2 photos here.
To the proposed channel.
Yeah, so this is where you can see the fence line just at the edge of this picture. So this is the sanctuary area we'd be looking at. We'd be looking at running that swale configuration. We would come through with a pipe and have a head wall and an apron, and then design that swale and have it come through in here and take it down to the downstream end where the berm is. And we have some information about 4F. Do you want to get into that now?
I think we want to hold that, maybe. We'll go over that after.
Okay.
At this point,
Does that conclude your comments, Benoni?
yeah, at this point, this is where we are with the design. Of course, I think it would probably be good to hear next from the Shade Tree Commission and their concerns. We have tried to meet with the Shade Tree Commission and come up with alternatives, but no matter how you look at it, no matter where you put the water, if we put it on the township property, we're going to disturb trees. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Some are big ones. A lot of them are small caliber trees, smaller trees. It's not that the smaller trees can't be planted back or trees can't be planted back to compensate for it. The only reason, like I said, was the decision I made to move it to the township property was to save the $500,000 to get the agreement approved by PennDOT and go through that whole process. And not that we can't go through that process again, it's just going to take time and we'll slow down the process. Now, we're in the right-of-way process right now. We have no idea how long that's going to take. What this process has done is, because we don't have our environmental clearances, we're allowed to work on the project, but the township can't be reimbursed their money. We have our bills into PennDOT for reimbursement, but they're being held until this whole process of the environmental clearances is cleared up. Once that's done, then the township will be reimbursed. So because we don't have our environmental clearances, that does slow down almost every aspect of the project. I mean, every day there's a delay in not getting these clearances. There's days that we can't get other approvals done and other work done on the project. So this is a key issue and it has to be addressed by the board, whether they want to use this property or go back to PennDOT to decide, to try and get reimbursement and put the property back on the cemetery's property. It does impact the cemetery's property. I mean, you're talking a large area that we would have to take from the cemetery. I'm sure there'll be negotiations on that. I'm sure the number we come up with, the cemetery's not going to be happy with, will be involved in condemnation and everything on that property as we go through all this. So it's not an easy process. We're not telling you it's going to be easy. It's not that it can't be done. There's nothing that can't be done. It just, like I said, could delay some of the project. We don't know how that's going to coincide with the right-of-ways. They're going very well right now. We're getting a lot of the right-of-ways. The right-of-ways are moving forward pretty quickly. The appraisers have been out. They've got a lot of their appraisal work done. By the end of the year, they should have all that information in place. Our solicitor's office is ready to go work on this in January to start, getting signatures on all these right-of-ways. And again, if that process moves fast and this process moves slower, things could delay the project and things could slow up.
Can I ask a question?
One moment. Prior to this development with this, how was the project going to handle the water coming off of the reconstruction of Tyson and Edge Hill?
Well, we originally were going to use the township property because at first we thought, that it was for the town, that's what the purpose was, and I thought that's where it should go and that's where the drainage should be taken. There was some question as to whether this was a wildlife sanctuary. I've spoken to Doug. He said this has never been classified as a wildlife sanctuary. It's still township property. It's still ours to do with what we want with it. It's up to the board again, how to handle this property and what you want to do with the property. But again, there are 4 basins on that property already. There are stormwater channels all over the basin, all over the area that's been created for stormwater management. When this housing development was going to be built, the purpose of the township was to buy the property, not only just to not have 200 homes to be flooded down there, but also to somehow manage the stormwater problems in Ardsley and Roslyn, which is done very well. This property has served the township very well in doing that and meeting a lot of our MS4 requirements. And that's what we're trying to accomplish as well as everything else. The existing channel does have environmental problems. It's going to have to go through DEP and it's going to have to go through the Army Corps of Engineers. We move it over to the township's property. We eliminate some of those problems. We don't have as many problems because now we're creating a new channel. I do believe the old channel will disappear because there won't be a lot of water except for the yard water in the yards that will go down to that channel. The new channel will be handling what's considered the Honey Year storm. Again, this whole project was to protect the homes from the 100-year storm. And it's a flood control project. It's always been a flood control project. But I don't want to speak for, again, the Shade Tree Commission. I think they have a right to speak. And I think maybe, after you've talked a little bit here, I think they should have their turn.
Yes. And I know my fellow commissioners do have questions. As you know from the agenda, we're supposed to have a comment from Chairperson Rita Stevens, but we can certainly talk to commissioners now. Yes, Commissioner Zappone.
Okay, Mike. So any deviation from this original approved plan is going to, number one, cost the taxpayers extra money,
That's correct.
and number two, it's going to delay this project. Is that right?
Well, delay it in the sense of this aspect of the project. There are other aspects of the project that are taking time, so I'm not going to say it's going to delay.
This will further delay.
It can cause further delay down the road if we take too much time in deciding how we're going to handle the situation. That's why we're here tonight. That's why the committee met on Friday, to come to the board and see how the board wants to handle it and make a decision, if we can get a decision one way or the other, and then we'll proceed down the next road and do whatever the board decides.
And since these plans were approved some time ago, has anybody ever stepped forward to challenge these plans?
Well, in all fairness, I don't think everybody had these plans. I don't think the Shade Tree Commission had everything in front of them. Once they got it, they came to me, and then like I said, we've been trying to work on an alternative, but it looks like no matter how you slice it, we're going to take trees down on the property. And we're going to take, and they would like the township, well, I'm not going to speak for them. They'll tell you what they would like. So I think you got to hear from them on that.
And to follow up what you said, okay, and so everybody clearly understands this, this is a flood control project. It's not cosmetic. The paint and paper stuff comes later. This project is to save lives, which I lost to in 96. We had 2 very bad floods, as folks up here know. 96, which we lost 2 residents on Madison Avenue, and 2001 was a repeat of the 96 flood. Okay, so our job is to save lives and to save property. That's our job. That's what we're here to do.
Commissioner Spiegelman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before the Pannoni folks yield to Dr. Stevens, it's a question, I guess, for you guys and maybe also for Mike. Under the existing plan that routes the water primarily through the township channel that Mike described, there is some right-of-way acquisition required from the cemetery. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
The water. Do you have? Is there a way you could indicate that on your previous map? I just want to get a sense of where that was. If it's not too hard to do that.
Do you know where?
On this, yeah.
So right now, this is
The blue line.
the fence line.
Right.
It's tough to see, right here.
Okay.
So that's the property line, and then that comes across and comes through here. So there might be minor right-of-way negotiations that would be involved between the road and the septic tracks. You know, but that's not anything being currently used for grave sites or, designated for that purpose or anything, so.
That's not something that's been negotiated already, because I know the cemetery changed hands last year. That's not something that was negotiated previously with the old owners of Hillside. Okay, just double check.
None of the right-of-ways have been negotiated with any of the property
Right.
owners yet. This is just, we're still in the, appraisal phase.
Right.
And like I said, our solicitor has not moved forward on those negotiations, and that work will be done sometime in January or February.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mike.
Chairman?
Thank you.
Could we see what they just explained on that side? That's kind of difficult.
Yeah, because I don't,
I'm sorry. So this is the fence line, this light gray line that runs through here.
Excuse me, can I just say, could you just mention that to the left is Ardsley Cemetery and to the right is North Hills? Not everybody has that,
This is
knows
our
the cemetery.
over here.
Yeah.
And then this is the sanctuary
Yeah.
on the right-hand side. So this fence line denotes the property line between the two. And then that runs down through here, and we have this proposed crossing coming through this person's property. And under the septic tracks, we have a new crossing come through and come out. So there's a minor bit of right-of-way that we have to iron out just in this area.
No. You have a big berm.
We also are asking for temporary construction easement for access on Hillside Drive. So that's not a permanent right-of-way acquisition, but just temporary construction.
Thank you.
That's for one of the big basins.
Okay, yes, Commissioner Klein. I'll get right to you, my other commissioners.
Well, I yield to Commissioner Gillespie. She had her hand up before me. Go
Okay,
ahead.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you. When you changed, you had this originally, and then you were narrowing the system, is that going to delay us? Because this is your original.
No. If you go to the next slide.
Yeah.
By going to this configuration, that is no different than the wider channel. It's
You
still
just-
a stormwater feature that we're
just a little
designing
deeper.
through the
Yeah,
sanctuary.
okay. All right.
Yes, the intent was just to try and get the smallest footprint possible to minimize the tree loss.
I got that. Thank you.
Commissioner Rubin?
Yes, Commissioner Klein.
Thank you. So, I guess let me step back a second. How did we get to the point where now we have a gun to our head that we have to make a decision? Because it seems like, and I appreciate all the work that Commissioner Zappone and others have put into this project, and I know how long you've been waiting and how much work it's taken to get to this point. But it seems like every time this project comes up, we have a gun to our head about something. So last time was about all the appraisers and the legal work that had to be done. Now it's in front of us again. I have another gun to our head about making a decision about something. So how did we get to this point? Am I right to understand that the plan was to use the existing water course and go through the cemetery property and get the easements? Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. We looked at using the existing cemetery property. The cost of the right-of-way was $500,000. PennDOT was struggling finding the money to fund this. So back when we made the reimbursement agreement, we decided to move it from the cemetery property over onto the township property, thus reducing the
And
cost
when was
of the
that?
right-of-way. I was back, I'd say, 2010, somewhere around there, when we were negotiating the reimbursement agreement.
So 5 years ago?
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
Okay.
It was not known anything about this wildlife sanctuary. Of course, we didn't talk to anybody. We didn't know that the Shade Tree Commission was very concerned about the trees, and that was made as a way to get the right-of-way agreement, reimbursement agreement approved. Now that it's been approved, the Shade Tree Commission has stepped in. We've met with them several times looking at the tree issues, and they're very concerned about the trees, and they would like to save the trees. They'd like us to go back to the original design. Again, to do that,
What original design?
going back to the cemetery property,
Which was 5 years ago.
which is 5 years ago.
Okay.
Right. In order to do that, that means then we had to go back and renegotiate the whole new thing again with PennDOT, getting them to agree to pick up their 80%. At first, they didn't think they could do that, but now they've said that they possibly can, and they could possibly pick up the 80%, 20%. There will be additional costs, of course, for acquiring that right away. They're not going to pick up the legal costs that are going to cost the township to go to condemnation and so forth, because that's a very complicated area. The cemetery thinks they can build graves there. They're going to want more money than what our appraisers are willing to appraise it at.
Let's stay away from the doomsday stuff. I'm just trying to figure out the information. So what I don't understand is it was 5 years ago that we decided to make this switch over. Did anybody, I mean, how long are we, at what point are we going to start constructing this project?
That's what we'd like to know.
I'm sure Commissioner Zappone would like to know. I mean, you're talking about this is going to change the schedule, this is going to delay us, it's going to cost us more money. Let's hold off on the money aspect for a second, but let's talk about the schedule here. I mean, when are we starting construction?
We're hoping spring of 2017, if all the right-of-ways go perfect.
So a year and a half from now.
A year and a half from now.
And we can't, and so if this was a possibility, we can't get this worked out in some way, shape, or form, or at least investigate with the cemetery whether we can work out some other option where we don't disturb any other land and it's already not disturbed?
Say this again? Well, you're going to disturb the cemetery's property. There's no doubt about it.
I understand that, but have we talked to the cemetery?
Have we talked to them? Yes, we have talked to them.
And did they say
as
no?
far as meeting with them on the different locations in there, but we haven't narrowed down anything until we make a decision of which way we're going to go. I mean, as far as the cost,
But I don't have enough information. I mean, do we know what the cemetery is going to do?
nobody knows what the cemetery is going to do. It's up to them. I'll leave it to our legal counsel maybe to give you some idea on how we're going to approach to gathering the right of way, but it's not an easy process. I mean, it's not going to be easy to get the right of way.
Well, I understand it's not an easy process, but have we had any conversations with the cemetery? Excuse me.
Can I make a comment? Yes.
I think essentially, since again, this is a PennDOT project and we are making sure that we are following every PennDOT rule and regulation to the letter, we're waiting for the appraisals to be completed before we're approaching any of the property owners. Because again, at this point in time, we can't make any promises or any guarantees or negotiate anything with any of the property owners until the appraisals are done. The appraisals are, I think, close to getting done, and Mike keeps using the time frame of the end of the year for the right-of-way situation to be at least a clearer picture of it. And that is what we're kind of planning on spending, once the appraisals are done, spending about a 90-day period trying to wrap up all of the right-of-way. But until we have the appraisals, it doesn't make sense to approach any of the property owners.
Well, I understand you can't approach them to discuss any specifics, but at least to find out if the cemetery is at least remotely interested in letting us use their property or use the existing drainage way that's been created.
Well, again, Commissioner Klein, with all due respect, the problem with that is they can tell me one thing today and
Right.
something different tomorrow. So until we're able to put documents in front of them, we can't plan based on what they may be telling us until we're able to lock down the right-of-way.
Can
I make
At this point, we're going to turn to, I know my commissioners have other questions.
I wasn't finished.
I'm sorry.
I guess let me finish up by saying, it was 5 years ago the decision was being made. Now it's being put in front of us, and we're being told that we got to make a decision right away.
I think.
Can I just make a comment on one more addition? It's not just the coordination or the right-of-way take with the cemetery. Going through and using the existing channel, we also fall into a higher level of permitting, the DEP permit. And the DEP permit, that's
But you knew
part
that
of
5
the-
years ago,
Knew 5 years ago.
that the existing drainage swale would cause a more intense
No.
DEP permit, correct?
No, we have classified it as a waterway. So it's now, we did updated field views once the supplement, the reimbursement agreement went into place. We did updated field views, classified it as a waterway. And again, there's additional requirements now because it's classified as a waterway.
And when was that done?
That was done right after the reimbursement agreement. We did our surveys and went forward with our wetlands investigations and
how long
again,
ago was that?
classification. That was just, again, that was a couple months ago.
Okay.
That was in January and February.
It's not a couple months ago, but okay.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you. I do, thanks. I do have to make a comment. I do believe the confusion here is, and of course, I've attended these meetings, and they've been very good and informative to all of the residents who are waiting patiently, not anymore impatiently. And this was the plan. And since now we have heard that this could have been a wildlife, which we did not. Originally, I believe it was for flood control, and we did not want 400 houses. Now, if this original plan, which was done a while ago, has to move, it will hold us up, and we will have to purchase land from the cemetery. Is that correct? Try to purchase land which they consider burial sites. And their price is not the $395 that they were advertising for a while, now that they think we need it. This is what we're trying to avoid, to go with our original plan, which there's been many meetings on it, public, everybody could attend, everyone here, everyone on the board could have attended. This is a big project. I think everybody just, oh, well, they're having another meeting on Edgehill Road and Tyson Avenue. Oh, well, they're having another meeting on Tyson Avenue. You know what? This is a big project. There are many homes involved. There was a lot of flooding. There was flooding on Madison Avenue, and it is true. It starts up at the top, it works its way down, and it's something that we have to keep moving on. And we all know how things work government-wise, starting at the lowest point. We have to get everything, this approved, that approved, and every time there's one little change, there's a big 6-month delay. This has been going on for so long, and if everybody had taken a little bit of interest and showed up at one of these meetings, just one, they were excellent meetings. Our attorney was there last time. He explained everything so well to everybody. They left there thinking, this may happen, may something. We might see a shovel, something, 2017, maybe. And these people deserve something to be done, and shortly. I mean, this is going on since my husband was commissioner. And again, I don't know of how many board members have shown up at one of these meetings. Really.
I showed up to a couple of the meetings, and actually
Oh,
I
good.
take a little offense that you've admonished
I'm
the
glad
rest
you
of the
did.
board members for not being
Anybody,
here.
and that's great. Don't take
Oh.
offense. I'm glad you're saying you did. I'm glad you're saying you did. So you're questioning these items when, if you showed up, you would have known that they were approved. Okay? And we've been working on them, and everything and you know, Steve, because you're an architect.
I understand that this is a flood project, and everybody understands the importance.
Right.
We've been living with this, and I understand that this
Right.
is an important project, and I know Commissioner Zappone has been working on this to
Yes,
try to
he
get
has.
this done, and we all get that. I mean, we don't have to go through the whole narrative again. Everybody understands
Well,
that.
maybe
What
they
I'm
don't.
asking, the question I'm asking is, why every time something comes up on this project, and I don't fault anybody on the board, but why every time something comes up on this project, it seems like the gun's being put, we have to make a decision tomorrow?
Because, again, it will be
The
delayed.
board does not have to make a decision. The process can slow down. You can take your time to make the decision. We're just.
But that's the gun.
This is coming from the
It's the
committee.
slowdown.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
It's the imminent.
Could I please
It's
speak?
the actual idea that this is going to, if we don't make a decision now, it's going to slow down, and then everybody's going to, then all the residents are going to have a disservice put to them. That's the gun to the head, Mike.
Okay. This came out of committee. This didn't come out of one person. This is a group of effort of everybody. Not just one person from the committee, but 8 people decided that it's had to come to the board for a decision because it's something we can't make. It's something we can't do. We can't commit $500,000 and delay time to this project. The board has to do that. And only the board can do that. I'm sorry, but that's the way it has to be.
Our state representative was there, PennDOT was there, everybody
That
was there.
State representative, our
Engineering.
solicitor's office was there,
Everybody
everybody
was
was
there.
there. Not just the township engineer, everybody. And this came out of committee to come to you for a decision.
Okay. Hold on, Commissioners. Let's turn to Ms. Stevens, and let's hear from the Shade Tree Commission. Good evening. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. It's Rita Stevens, 115 Stanley Avenue. Just have to find my presentation. the Shade Tree Commission and the Environmental Advisory Council have been working together on this, so I'm representing both groups this evening. What we'd like to do is present our analysis and recommendations on this subject, and we'd like to do it in two parts. We really believe that the needs of both the natural environment and stormwater management can be met. They both can be served while still keeping this project on track. And what we'd like to do is put forth the rationale for doing that. I'd like to start with a map just to orient us to the woodlands of Ardsley Wildlife Sanctuary. This is from the land management plan that the township commissioned that was published, I believe, 2006 by the Land Concepts. And what you see here are different degrees of shading of green. Oops. I guess, is there a pointer? No, I got to get, how do I get back? I'm giving away all my stuff here. Sorry, could I have a little technical assistance? Okay, yeah, this doesn't seem to be working. Okay. Okay, gotcha. Oh, that would be great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're back in the woods here. Little difficult to see, but what Land Concepts did was they did a very detailed analysis of our woodlands and demarked them on this map. This dark green is considered to be the highest quality woodlands in all of the sanctuary. And as you go down in intensity of greens, they become lower quality. Just to orient you, here is the railroad track. So here's the Edge Hill Tyson reconstruction project area, and the area that Matt and Debbie had indicated is where that overlay is. And then, of course, this is the streamway that ultimately goes to the existing flood control devices and onto Sandy Run Creek. What I'd like to say is that I want to take you very quickly through a little walk in the woods, and I'm only going to just rapidly go through this to give a sense of what is at stake here. But first of all, to set the scene is that this is a mature hardwood forest. So this is taken directly out of our Land Concepts plan, where we had professionals 10 years ago, and said, in essence, our highest quality woodland is not only forest habitat, but it is one of the best systems for stormwater control. Reduced runoff, limited erosion, water infiltration. In essence, the woodland floor, because you have a mature woodland, is so spongy that it soaks up, retains water, et cetera. And so our first premise is that this is a significant value and that we have to think about how to direct the stormwater so that we can get the best of everything, that we can maximize the utility of our forest for our water, both in terms of infiltration and as well as quality, and go from there. Now here's for the little walk in the woods. For those of you who have not been through this forest, I invite you to go through. When you think about how many of our forests are not sustainable because of invasive species, vines, et cetera, think about that experience, and while I just very quickly go through a few of these. You look up in the canopy, and there's a diversity of canopy, healthy, rich. You don't see vines in this high-quality woodland area. You look at the understory. There is an understory. This understory includes not only the shrubbery end of things that's necessary for a contiguous habitat, but also, if you look towards the bottom, what you see is the next generation of trees that are growing there. You see oaks. You see all the different types there, the tulip poplar. You go down to the floor and you really see the sponge. You see the diversity. These pictures are all pictures that I happen to just snap walking through this woods within the last couple of months. And on top of it, dispersed, not in this woodland area, but just to put out the whole picture of this sanctuary, is that it is a valuable wetlands area and one that when you take all of that together, it says, here we have a resource for water quality, for water infiltration, and so let's be thoughtful about how we decide to convey water through it. So what about stormwater? There is a preponderance of evidence, all sorts of research data and practical experience that trees work for us in the stormwater context. They act like large umbrellas in terms of the 1,000 to 4,000 gallons a year that a given tree will infiltrate or will capture and never even go anywhere else and eventually evaporate off. The water that gets to the soil infiltrates at 10 to 18 inches per hour. That's 3 times the rate of what a grassed area will do. Trees use a tremendous amount of water for growth. The data for our state is that we have about 24 inches of rain a year, 40 inches of rain a year, and a forest will take up 24 inches of that. And then when we get into water quality in terms of our increasing demand for pure water and to be keeping nitrates and phosphates out of our drinking water, critical to MS4 regulation, the trees are a critical tool for making that happen. And last but not least is that trees are essential to stream health no matter where they're planted in the watershed. You might say, oh, this isn't really a riparian area, but what the Stroud Research Center for Water says is that in essence it's all about infiltration and groundwater. So we've got a huge resource here. And I love this quote from Vinnie Catrone, who is probably the most knowledgeable person I have come across in all of my forestry dealings, that he deals with more urban stormwater, but he says, sure, trees are beautiful, of course we know they provide health, shade, remove the carbon, et cetera, but, we're looking at trees to reduce stormwater that's affecting water quality, polluting streams and rivers. And so all that to say is compelling case for high-quality woodlands that need to be a piece of our stormwater system. So you look into what our township policy is about trees, and it reflects these values. You go to our comprehensive plan, and it recognizes that since we are almost completely developed, it is essential that we preserve both green space and tree canopy. You go to the open space, recreation, and environmental resource plan. There is a definition of vulnerable resources that includes woodlands, and when you look in the woodlands classification, that it is a high priority for conservation because it is recognized that it's vital to the remaining vestiges of township's natural environment. So this is not a simple decision in terms of just to say that I want to cut a swath of our highest quality forest and use it without having thought for what are our alternatives to meet the needs of not only keeping this great natural resource that will manage stormwater for us in exchange for something that will not do the job that the forest can do. So the question ahead, here's the call for trees, is how do we integrate trees with serving the needs for conveying this water? And it really comes down to looking at what are our best management practices that we need to use to guide to this design. PAYDAP has a stormwater manual for best management practices. What it tells us is that first and foremost, you use natural systems, if at all possible. These are also known as non-structural best management practices, that you figure out how are you going to divert the stormwater so that you're protecting sensitive areas, that you're protecting, conserving, or enhancing riparian, that you're using natural flow pathways, and that you're minimizing disturbance and minimizing the ultimate maintenance that you have to do. Once you've thought through that, then you start thinking about what are your man-made structural, and very necessary in this case, it is a lot of water that we're talking about, that what do we do to supplement this so that we work with it to reduce the volume and peak rate by infiltration means where we're able to, and to improve the runoff quality and the peak rate in terms of our water quality. So we've got these tools. We also have a situation where because this property is Call it parkland, call it a sanctuary. It is something that we have a township policy in our open space plan, et cetera, that we're to preserve trees. I would argue that the spirit is that we should be looking for de minimis impact here. So avoid if we can. If we can't avoid, let's be very careful about our choices and how we disrupt this woodland. What I'd like to do is turn a couple of slides over to Glenn Stevens, who actually is more skilled in this area. He's a retired Chief of Hydrology and Hydraulics for U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that has been assisting the Shade Tree Commission in the analysis of how do we take what we understand about the value of the forest and how do we apply best management practices and what are our options going forward.
Is he related to you, ma'am?
I am. My name is Glenn Stevens. I live at 115 Stanley Avenue, Glenside, Pennsylvania, 19038. Okay. So let's talk about the kinds of plans we've got out here.
Can you bend the microphone towards your voice?
I can. I'll try, and I'll have to scrunch down a little too, I guess. Oh.
Just move the tank out of the way.
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Oh, my gosh. Let's hold it about right there. Now, how does a pointer work? Can you? Oh, boy, thanks. Just don't look at it, right? Okay, good. Okay, we first learned about this project back in about August, I think, and at the time, Pannoni had just put together their plan for putting in a conveyance channel right down through here. The existing one is right over in here, and right over in here is one that the Shade Tree Commission also looked at being on township property that might be acceptable to serve the purposes of stormwater and preservation in the forest. Let's talk a little bit about the map features. The red lines here are actually the topographic highs between flow paths, between valleys, so these are the ridges between the valleys. They're not really high ridges out here like you'd see somewhere in the mountains, but they're definitely the high ground. The Pannoni plan stays close to the fence and runs right down pretty much along this ridge line. These other plans lay down in the natural drainage features that the water has eroded over time. These represent the lowest areas within that valley, and those are the areas in which water collects and runs in response to rainfall. We also looked at a third one that came up when we were out in the field for the visit just before the meeting with the DOTs. We were out in the woods, and we came up with the idea, wouldn't it be great if we could take this great infiltration capacity in the forest and we could use it somehow to beneficially re-infiltrate the stormwater, view stormwater as a resource and not really something that we were trying to waste. And so we came up with the idea maybe of putting berms across the valley to try and act as check dams for the flow coming down, that it would spread the flow out, it would give it a chance to infiltrate. We'd have a nice big level flow spreader up here that would take the concentrated flow out of the 42-inch pipe, spread it back across the 260-odd feet width of the valley, and then it would sheet flow down into the next check dam, which would redistribute it and sheet flow down, get redistributed, reflow down until it finally reached down here. And it was a good concept because at this point we really are at the conceptual design phase in what we're developing for this valley here. It's where you come up with ideas, you look at the pros and cons of them, and you try to decide, is this really a good thing to go forward or not? In the case of this design, we got a lot of good response initially from forestry people at Penn State about the potential of doing this. We got into the regulations. I read thousands of pages of BMPs for Pennsylvania, for Maryland, for Virginia, for Ohio, looking for ways to justify what we wanted to do with this level flow spreader. And finally, in the Soil Erosion and Control Manual, I found Appendix G. And Appendix G was something that was put together by a working group from the conservation districts in Pennsylvania. I think Montgomery and Delaware and Berks County were involved, along with some of the other people within the state. And they looked at level flow spreaders because they had a lot of occurrences where people had misused them, and they had bad results, and they did a really nice job detailing a lot of information, but unfortunately for our purposes, they said that in forest environments that they could allow no more than 1 CFS distribution per 64 foot of lineal length, which meant now that our level flow spreader, which has to handle 100 CFS, could only handle about 5 CFS. So that pretty well killed that plan. So that one fell out, and we were left with 1 on the ridge and 2 down following natural flow features, which is what the non-structural BMPs recommend, following the natural flow features. So let's go on to the next. You're going to have to help me again. Page down? Got it. Okay. So this was the plan that I thought Pannoni was going to build, but after looking at Matt's picture, it looks like you guys have a different plan than this?
That was our first.
That was the first plan. What's the current plan?
Maybe 10 feet wide.
10 feet wide, but still have levees?
Only where we would need them.
Only where you would need them. So it's not in size completely down in the ground.
We would try to follow natural contour as much as possible.
Yeah. Is it, how much is levee and how much isn't?
I'm sorry, sir, you have to address the chair. That gentleman's not on mic. We're trying to record this for the residents at home, and they can't hear that byplay between you and him.
Okay, I apologize. It's just that we hadn't seen that plan that he put up, oddly enough, and I'm not quite sure why or how. But the biggest complaints we had about this plan, the first plan, was the use of levees and the fact that it was going to be roughly an acre of trees that they were going to have to cut down to put this channel in. It seemed to be an extremely large taking of trees. And the fact that you're using levees on top of a hill, what that means is that anything that's going to go in here and disturb this levee to the point where it's going to fail, it's going to fail catastrophically. The water's going to splatter all over the hillside, and it's going to cause all kind of erosive destruction. So if you look at ways that levees can fail, it's just about everything that exists naturally in the woods. You're trying to grow grass in a forest. It's not a good idea because you don't get a lot of sun. So that means that you can never reestablish a canopy over this. It has increased runoff. If you take a look at the acre of trees that you're cutting down, we were out last week or week before when we had that 4-inch rain. There was no runoff from the forest. If you put this BMP in with its acre cut down, you would have generated something on the order of 10,000 cubic feet of runoff in an area that had no runoff before. That's significant. As a matter of fact, this plan, compared to putting it inside a natural existing swale, which would be following the path that the water itself has formed in the valley. It's the lowest point in the valley to run from top to bottom. You can't fail in this thing. There's nothing that's going to make it leap out of this channel unless there's too much water or there's suddenly some kind of a dam. Up here, any disturbance to this that causes the failure of the levee is going to put this water all over the valley. And 100 CFS moving through here, coming out of the pipe at 10 feet a second can do an awful lot of damage really quick. So we don't feel this thing is really safe. It's going to have extremely high O&M. There are going to have to be continual inspections on this thing for everything from fallen trees to burrows to... I can just see the BMX biker kids out there using this thing as a green pipeline, half pipe, running down through there. It'd be an exciting ride.
So what pathway would you suggest going?
Well, if we go back to the other one, let's see if I can do this. Oh, success. If you go back and look at this other one is on the ridge. That's the one that's got the levees. The ones off to either side, the original plan, which went through the existing highly eroded channel, or you could excavate into another one of these water courses, and you could stone line them so they didn't erode because it's a forest, so you can't grow grass in a forest unless you open the canopy and leave it open. So that's what they would be doing. So let's see, back to here, high O&M. This O&M cost is not inconsequential because for this grass to remain growing, they're going to have to come in periodically and they're going to have to prune canopy along both sides. So this is going to be a real expense, ongoing expense every year. And I can't help but believe that if you amortize that expense back to a present value, that you're going to find that you would save enough by doing something else that it would more than justify any cost to do it. And that's it for that. Having said all of that about that plan, I'm not sure what the footprint is for the new plan that they're proposing. What's the width on that as far as...
I'm sorry, sir. Once again, you can't turn to the gentleman, and if you can please conclude your remarks, we're ready to continue to
Okay,
discuss
let me
this
turn
matter.
it over to Dr. Stevens.
We just have one final summary slide here. So knowing what we knew walking into the room tonight and looking at this grass-lined swale versus using a natural feature, we continue with our original position that we set forth in early August, that the grass-lined swale is unacceptable. It changes the topography. There's a cut and fill necessary to put it on the ridge line. There's a permanent opening of canopy so that you not only take away your ecologic services of the tree, but you never get them back. That results in increased runoff, which adds to the volume of floodwater. You've got the significant maintenance complexity, and in essence, you've got this higher cost than using a natural channel for your path of flow, and you're still stuck with a risk of failure because of the levees and the design. So our position is that we need to go and use one of the two stone line channels. Whichever way you go, you're going to end up becoming a lower cost position because of the combination of construction and maintenance. You're going to minimize the disruption to the woodlands relative to doing a grass swale. There's credit that you can get for these natural BMPs. You know, there's some argument that people might say, oh, you get some credit for putting in a grass-lined swale because it's a BMP, but it's kind of false economy because by putting that in, you're taking away your forest. We don't believe that this does delay the Edge Hill Tyson project. We believe that we've been working diligently here, and given that we're in the concept phase, really trying through to find out what is the best path forward. There are two channels, as we mentioned, one that's in the cemetery, one that's in the woodlands. If you put the complexity of the fact that Abington Township does not own the land in the cemetery, there's an attractiveness that it is an existing channel in an already disrupted area, so you're not making a new disrupted area, and that potentially, and this is down the road when the engineers get into their design, but there may be more design flexibility in terms of how you slow and possibly have some option for storage there. The woodlands is a viable option. You know, if we get to a point where we say that, it's just not in the cards to be going after the most environmentally sound choice, that and that we need to stay on the property, that the value of this one is that, again, that we do use the natural contours, and that it may take decades for the disrupted forest to come back, but it can come back. It's not a permanent taking of the forest. So, many moving parts on this project. We certainly have a lot of compassion for needing to keep this project on track, and there's a lot of pieces that are not in our purview, but we really believe that one of those two choices needs to be made, and that when you get into the system design, just underscore that we maximize the use of the non-structural BMPs so that we maintain the value of the forest and what it does for us in stormwater control and water quality, and that in essence, just by choosing a stone line channel, using one of the natural waterways, it's in line with our township environmental policies, the PADEP best management practices, and this 4F policy. So we think that is the way to go.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Okay, now returning to Commissioner comment. Commissioner Hecker.
Commissioner Bowman, could I ask for clarification about what the expected outcome of tonight's discussion is? And so this is a discussion item only. I'm unclear about what we're asking the board to do. And secondly, I'm confused about the time. So I appreciate that this debate needs to be had, or needed to be had, which I think is the key. There seems to have been a failure of process here. If what I'm hearing is accurate, that the decision and the plan that was put forward tonight by our consultants was agreed to 5 years ago. I'm confused as to why we're having this discussion now and not 5 years. So I just need help in understanding what we're actually trying to accomplish here tonight.
Okay. Coming before you is the Shade Tree Commission. They would like, initially, they wanted to alter the plan. They
Right.
wanted to go back to the original channel. So they're asking you to change the plan.
I guess my question is why didn't this come up when the decision was made to go forward with this design at the time that everything was agreed
I
to?
don't believe the Shade Tree Commission was apprised of all this or were on board at that point. I mean, this was years ago. Again, it took almost 9 years to negotiate
No, understood.
this whole right-of-way
Understood.
process and everything, and they finally became into the picture. Now, hearing first tonight that they were willing to go back to the channel, we had walked and looked at the channel, and I said, we could look at doing that, but after meeting with Glenn and Rita, they decided they really didn't want to back that. They wanted to go back to the cemetery property. But if they're willing to move this from the fence line further into the site, I don't think that's a problem. That doesn't cost us any problem at all, except we do have some design work. We're going to have additional survey work. Benoni, it's going to cost a little bit more money to go with Benoni, but I think the township can live with that decision. What as the engineer, I can't live with is going back to the original design and going back to the cemetery property. That causes a heavy problem. We've already decided we're not doing that, and you're not deciding not to do that. You're deciding tonight whether how you want to agree with the Shade Tree Commission and what direction you want to go to give me to write the letter to PennDOT, this is what we're going to do. I have to write to the PennDOT a letter that we're willing to use the township property and use it for drainage so that it's clear so they can proceed with their environmental.
But we're not actually voting on anything tonight. So.
Well, you're not voting on anything tonight, it's direction. You're supposed to give, the idea is to give me direction as to what to do with this project from tonight so we can move forward. If we're going back to the cemetery property and we've got to go back to PennDOT, I've got to go back to PennDOT, renegotiate all that. If we're going to stay in the township property, that's fine. If that's what you decide, that's the policy. We want to stay there. We'll continue to work with the Shade Tree Commission to find the most easiest route or most viable route that they're willing to agree with through the township property. And if there is a natural channel there and it's going to take a little bit more work for us to design it, I don't think we as a design team have a problem with that. We just have to have the Shade Tree Commission on board with that idea.
Well, in my view, that has to be the answer. I don't think we can afford any further delays, and the projected costs here are significant.
Yes, Commissioner Kalinowski.
Yes, I'm going to have to agree with what George just said there. And Rita, to bring this up to us is very nice. I grew up in Ardsley for 30 years. I lived there. We horseback rode all through that area. There was a lot of natural trails and paths and things you could really enjoy that. And there was wetlands. This property was probably bought or paid for it not to become a sanctuary, but to become flood control area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct. So to find a natural system that works, I think we have to reach out and do that. But so everybody has to agree on this, and I think it's the way to go.
Yes, Commissioner Spiegelman.
Actually, you know what? It's Commissioner Zappone's ward. He can go first, then I'll have a question after.
No, I'm just going to make one comment. The Ardsley Wildlife Sanctuary was named some years ago by myself and 2 residents. Okay? That's it. We named it. That was it. Okay? We went through that area numerous times, and the 3 of us got together and said, well, what are we going to name this? We named it the Ardsley Wildlife Sanctuary. We had the sign put up there. That was it. It's not cataloged anywhere.
Yeah. Growing up, we called it Floaty's Pond.
We call it, yeah, floaties.
I've heard of
Floaties. So we ice skated back there. We fished back there. We it was a part of our lives growing up in Ardsley, and we called it Floaty's Pond.
And part of this project was to recreate Floaty's Pond, which
Yeah.
we did, and people ice skate back there, and that is a fishing area, and,
It is a fishing
and we
area.
use it for a major part of our stormwater control.
Okay.
Commissioner Spiegelman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I was originally going to ask Dr. Stevens, looking at things from the perspective, the sort of grassroots level of residents. What I gleaned from Dr. Stevens' presentation is that based on the 25-foot levee-based swale plan that it sounds like was the last thing that was presented to Shade Tree, there could be stormwater runoff issues created that would actually directly affect residents and their properties. So I wanted to ask you about that, but I guess the first question for you is, how long will it take, now that we've all, I guess, discovered that there's this completely different 10-foot, not entirely levee-based plan, how long might it take you and Glenn and Shade Tree to sort of review this new plan that's brand new to, I know, to me, and
I think
sounds
that,
like to
that
you.
the case is actually to Matthew Stalsitz, and the working member of the Pannoni team who is responsible for this design, that it's a matter of working through the details and working through the county conservation discussions to get this approved.
Okay. Matt, please. Matt.
Could I...
Just real quick, to agree with Rita, they hadn't seen the 10-foot design. I mean, we met on Friday, and I worked on that all weekend to come up with something that we thought we could find, a balance. So they haven't seen it, and that's not their fault. That's just the timing that happened. I mean, I finished it up this morning. But again, whatever the end result design is, we have to go through the permitting process, whether it's using the existing water course that we've mapped, which is the channel on the cemetery property, or coming up with a wide swale or using a natural channel, whatever. We need to show the reviewing agencies that the design works and meets all the design criteria. And we can work with the Shade Tree Commission to plot a course through the woodlands, if that's an agreeable solution, to come up with that answer that we feel that will satisfy the review agencies to get a permit issued to move construction forward.
Can that be done without encumbering folks who've clearly waited a very, very long time with delays? I mean, given how far out Mike described the project as being from construction commencement, can that be done without subjecting folks to further delays and the hypothetical massive costs of going some other route?
Yes, it's anticipated that if we were to remain within the township property and develop a stormwater management feature, conveyance channel, whatever that may be, we don't get into the DEP and Army Corps permitting that's involved with making modifications to the waterway. So once we get into that involves additional permitting and increased time length from a permitting standpoint above what would normally be part of the process. So that wouldn't necessarily add time to start a construction date, to move the channel further into the township property and to develop something there.
Something that, like Dr. Stevens was describing, that follows the existing waterways and maybe just,
correct.
Obviously there's a much broadened surveying involved, certainly,
Yes.
but.
Yeah.
And I know, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Stevens was going to say something. I'm very curious as to what she was about to say.
Well, we can get back to where I have commissioners who are waiting to speak also.
You are the chair.
Commissioner Gillespie?
I was going to ask the same question, really. You took care of it. Just the timeline and how long it was, would it affect anything? You did a great presentation, Rita and Glenn.
Yes, Ms. Stevens, would you like to make another comment?
I'd just like to, first of all, thank everyone for the consideration here, and in particular in preserving this land as open space. Just one last little factoid. When you look in our open space plan, that if you don't include Abington School District property, we are below our standards in terms of open space. And so every square foot is important to us, and the quality of every square foot is important to us. And I really appreciate that we're giving the consideration to get the most environmentally sensitive solution here.
Thank you. Now, there is a registered speaker, Ms. Jennifer Sherwood. Would you like to address the...
Hello, I'm Jennifer Sherwood, 651 Montgomery Avenue, 19046. I'm the chairperson of the Abington Township Environmental Advisory Council, and we've been working closely with the Shade Tree Commission on this project. We're looking at this from an overall environmental point of view. So we do care about trees, but trees aside, it really is an issue of water and flooding. And what we see with the proposed design is that you're removing some of the natural stormwater controls, and you're actually making the situation a little bit worse. So we would like to recommend that you go with one of the shade tree alternatives, because the existing, the straight swale design is going to make flooding worse, and if you divert around the forest, which is the best way to absorb water, you can actually have a better system that will help control the water in a better way with fewer failures. So think about the forest is an umbrella and a sponge. And so, you know, you're going to remove that sponge, you're not going to get it back. So you're exasperating the situation. So we have a wonderful natural resource there that can help control the flooding and will help the downhill residents. And we're very sensitive to residents' needs. So we really would like to recommend that you consider the Shade Tree Commission alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherwood. Yes, Commissioner Zappone.
Just to wrap up, the plan that was put in by Pannoni Engineering Firm, and all the consultants there, engineers, and working with Mike Powers over the past few years, that plan was presented to our residents. Numerous meetings, okay? Not an issue. What I would advise at this time, Mike, the staff can get together with the Shade Tree, okay, and just get some...
All I need tonight is for the Shade Tree Commission to agree that we can use the township property in some way to convey this water, and that takes away all the issue. The board doesn't have to make any decision. I can then write that letter tomorrow to PennDOT and start releasing some of the project to move forward. And this project can then move forward. As long as everybody agrees that we can use the township property to, whether it be a natural channel in there, whatever the design may be, to convey the water, and then the problem's solved. There is no problem.
That's fine.
And if that's what I'm hearing from the Shade Tree Commission, that we can do that, then this, I don't think the board has to do anything else. I don't believe you have to.
As long as that doesn't create any more delays, because I'm not having that.
I don't believe
and any
it's going
more
to.
taxpayers' money, I'm not having that either.
We
So if you can get together and work something out where it's not going to cause any more delay or taxpayers' money,
We
then I'm
did
fine.
have a meeting set up with the Montgomery County Conservation District. It was canceled because the Shade Tree Commission was still concerned, but we can get back together with the Shade Tree Commission, come up with an idea, design, and then try to move forward from there. And I don't think anybody has any problems with that. I don't think, I mean, it may take a little more engineering, a little more cost, but I think everything could be worked out between both parties, as long as we can use the township property.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
So might I understand there's really no
Commissioner Klein.
official action for us to take, so...
There would be no action as long as, like I said, the only action you would take is decide to go with back to the cemetery property. If you're going to go back to the cemetery property, it takes action because it takes additional money, additional funds, additional engineering, and additional permits.
But we couldn't take action on that anyhow, because we wouldn't have all the information to begin with.
But I think the Shade Creek Commission just told you that if they have a channel that they'd like to see us use inside the cemetery, inside the RZ Wildlife Cemetery section, if we can go over to that. We've looked at it before. I thought we could use it before, and I didn't see any reason why, but I didn't want to speak for the Shade Tree Commission. I just still felt we should go back to the cemetery. But tonight, I think you've got a different feeling from them, and I think we can move forward on the project if that's the case.
I mean, I guess it seems like the Shade Tree Commission or the EAC were willing to sit down with anybody and discuss it. I guess that could have happened regardless of whether we had this meeting or
Well,
not.
we've been discussing it, and things have changed in that issue.
Okay.
Is there someone from Pinoni who would like to make a comment, I understand, or?
Want to say something?
There will be some additional costs associated with the redesign. If we were going to shift, if we were going to look at an alternative of shifting to the east, we would need additional surveys and just some additional coordination and redesign. Not as significant as going into the cemetery.
Thank you. Is there any other public members who would like to comment on PW3's discussion only point?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. I just had a question. In the presentation that we had where we saw that the water went up and ended up in the wetlands area there, exactly what area is that along the, in other words, the Sandy Run area? And exactly what area is that? What near what development, what houses, what?
It's kind of where the streets that, in Ardsley, the dead end into the cemetery, Jackson and Monroe, and then Maple, obviously, the map's not up there, but it's kind of the area above where they have the walkway park now. By above, I mean towards North Hills, like towards...
So that's right next to the area that flooded so much that we had all that.
Well, that is, obviously, Madison Avenue is the lowest point in the township, so that's why the water flows down towards the creek.
Okay, so we're actually putting it in so that it will flow again down to that area that we just repaired because it had too much water?
No, we're following the topography of the land and trying to get the water to the Sandy Run Creek, which is the natural...
It will flow into the
flow.
existing basins that
it'll
have
be-
been designed there to control the stormwater. So this water won't reach the property owners as far as Madison Avenue is concerned. It will flow into the existing two detention basins. It's not actually, there's three, because there's a railroad track basin that's going to be expanded too, which protects Roslyn School and that area down in Roslyn.
And held into the detention basin so that they discharge at a rate that doesn't cause flooding, which is what the township has done over the last, how many years, Mike? I mean, 10 years, 15
Well,
years?
last 35 years since I've been
Right.
here, so.
So, I mean,
Okay, so
It's been
it's
working.
going, it is going to go from there, though, down towards Madison Avenue?
That's correct.
Okay, thank
no way around that.
Hi, Madeline Dean, 795 Glen Road. I've been a part of these working meetings with a lot of people, so some of you look a little confused, or you did before. I share your confusion, but I think what happened tonight was very valuable. I think that both the Shade Tree Commission, the Environmental Advisory Council offered some valuable alternatives, which we literally did not have in front of us Friday. So what was looking like, what you were saying, doomsday scenarios and having to purchase part of the cemetery for a very high price, re-engineer for a very high price, in the end, while this was real sausage making, I think there was something very positive that came out of it, which is a balancing of the interests. How do you protect nature that's naturally doing the job that we're trying to build through infrastructure in addition, but not at great cost and in no delay for this project? What I think is, I think you've given oversight. I think, Mike, you've said what we ought to do. But nothing else has to happen other than we got to get together and take advantage of the natural flow patterns to make sure that enough water can be moved. But as I said, Carol, I don't know about you, but we wound up leaving the room Friday with a very different scenario than what we just learned tonight. So I thank you guys for your input. I think it's smart, it's balanced, it balances the interest of the environment and what we're trying to do for the residents. So I'm in support.
Thank you. Step right forward, sir. You need not ask permission.
I'm Michael Jones. I live at 725 Tyson Ave, Glenside, 190038. Just maybe I do actually understand, but I just want to make sure, Commissioner Klein, you said that the extra, using these grass channels instead of absorbing it naturally with the trees and slowing it down, since we're using more of a flume with the grass channels and the levees, Now, all that water is flowing into you said they were flowing into 3 large basins, and then they would soak into the ground versus impacting Sandy Run further near Madison?
No, I don't think they soak into the ground. They discharge over the weirs into the natural flow of the creek, correct, Mike?
Well, they have a discharge pipe, and they slowly discharge into the system after the storm is over and hold back the water. All these basins hold back the water until the storm is well gone, and the flow into the stream is controlled so that there is no flooding downstream from these basins.
Okay, so it's sort of captured and slowed down?
That's correct.
Before it enters a sensitive...
Sandy Run enters upper Dublin and so forth on all the others.
The detention basins discharge at a rate that doesn't overburden the creek further down.
Right, the channel and the existing...
It holds the water and then discharges it at a rate that doesn't overburden the creek bed.
Okay, and then I heard before that the system, they were on a 100-year...
That's correct.
Like a 100-year flood level, and then the basins are, I assume, also up to the same level?
Basins are at a 100-year flood elevation, actually designed a little bit more.
Okay.
We've designed them the 96 flood storm, which was like a 500-year or a 1,000-year storm. So we kind of learned from that storm that was the higher numbers that we're going to see as far as a heavy rainstorm. So when we designed the system, we designed it to make sure that we could cover those storms.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
John Sorrentino, 819 Edge Hill Road, and EAC member. I learned a lot tonight, and I'm glad it happened. We did not know about the retention part of the plan. I've been going to the meetings, and this was not part of it until August. So those who will lament that this didn't happen 5 years ago, it could not have. We didn't know. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public? Okay, that's going to conclude the discussion. Is there anyone from the public who has any general public works comments?
3 minutes. I'm out of here.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. On that issue of the retention basins, there have been lessons learned in this township that one of the things that happens is that the slow release into our streams keeps the stream bed constantly wet. So when a small storm comes that normally wouldn't cause an overflow, there's no absorption left in the stream, and so they come closer to overflow. And that is, you just can't keep putting water into the same place. So I don't know where else this water will go. These people on Tyson Avenue need relief, but you just can't keep doing that. And it has a lot to do with what we're approving in our zoning meetings: more building, more development, more, concreting over. And it just can't go on, and you can't just keep overburdening the streams. Thank you.
I'm just going to make a quick comment.
Commissioner Zappone.
Mike, how long ago we put those basins and berms in the cemetery? Some years ago, wasn't it?
They happened in the early 90s. I just want to also make a point that there is no stormwater control on most of our township sites today, but the Wawa went in, reconstructed, put in a new basin, and every redevelopment that we have in this township is now actually doing stormwater control and actually providing more stormwater control to the township than we've ever had before. I've got a list as long as your arm now of basins I have to inspect, and even seepage pits. Someone puts in a shed today, they're required to do some type of stormwater control, either rain barrels or something. And I commend the commissioners for approving the township's plan.
And I got to tell you, those basins and berms, all these years, has worked. Yeah. Not one complaint on Madison Avenue, anywhere in the pocket in Ardsley. Nothing since we did all that work. Spent a lot of money, and it works.
Throughout the township, from the east side to the west side, on stormwater control.
Okay. That should do it. Thank you. watch football.
I blame you, Lefebvre.
Andy Reid trying to take home back. Winning streak.
Trying to deliver your wife to the pulpit.
We're getting there.
Sunday.